Hi, and welcome to Curious Conversations, the podcast where curiosity meets connection. Thanks for joining as we discuss captivating stories and ideas and engage in thought-provoking conversations with experts, enthusiasts, and everyday people. We hope to ignite a curious spirit as we embark on a quest for understanding, one curious conversation at a time. So let's jump in this together. Welcome to the world of Curious Conversations. Hello, and welcome to Curious Conversations, the podcast where we talk about the things we are most curious about. I'm Carly, and here with me is my co-host, Mandy. How's it going, Mandy?
Great. I'm really excited about the show today. This one is titled Curious Encounters, and we have a very special guest with us today that has some very curious encounters to share with us.
Yeah, today we have Connie Hall Scott, which I am so excited about. Welcome to the show, Connie.
Thank you guys for having me.
We've had several opportunities to collab with Connie, and it's always a lot of fun. Connie Hall Scott is just one of these people who happens to have a ton of stories up her sleeve, whether it's a strange item or an interview she did or a crazy experience she had. I mean, she's obviously going to be one of our first choices for an interview about Curious Encounters.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, listen, before we dive in, we want to share with you this week's Curious Dish.
Yep.
All right, this is the part of our show where we dish about the most curious thing we've seen this week. So, Mandy, what you got?
Okay. So I got a picture from my mom who works not far from here. It's like the next town over. So she sends me this image and she's like, I knew you'd want to see this. So evidently she was leaving work and took the back way down some alley or something, you know, the easier but not safer route.
Yep.
So anyway, she sees this thing and she's like, what in the world is that? So she has to take a picture of it. And so she stops to take this shot. And actually, I want to have one of these pictures on our social media, like teaser or something like that. But I'll just describe it for now. So you know how you'll see on the side of the road or like on a post or something, if somebody has been killed or there's been a wreck or something, and they'll put out flowers, a balloon, this kind of thing. Well, it made me think of that. But it was like behind a bunch of stores, like the back entry into stores. So I don't see that there could be, I don't know, maybe something really bad happened. I don't know what happened here. I want to find out the story. But so it's this post and there's all this, it looks like artwork. Like there's different, it looks at a glance, I can't see it perfectly, but it looks like drawings, paintings, and they're just layered like all the way up this thing. And then the weirdest thing is like a post or a tree or something next to that has, like the Halloween witches that kind of blow almost like an, what do you call them? The sock, the windsock.
Windsock.
It's almost like that, but it's a witch. And so it's in like a whole blowing kind of way up above that. It's just really bizarre. But I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I want to go check that out because I'm thinking when you stop and look through that, it might say what that's about. But that was weird.
Okay.
It's very curious.
Oh gosh. I think honestly, the most curious thing I've seen this week, we've got an episode coming up called Curious Products. Mm-hmm. And so we've been looking into some crazy products and some companies who got some really crazy starts. But one thing that I found that I am stoked about is actually underpants. Okay. So you can buy these on Amazon. I bought them because I needed to check them out, but they are, they're like the little paper towel, or I'm sorry, the little, like washcloths that you put in water and then they open up.
They spread out.
But they're underwear.
That's crazy.
Like, why would you ever
do that?
Yeah.
Real quick, let me do this.
Yeah. Sorry. I have to excuse myself to the bathroom, take my little, my inflatable pants. So I don't know. That was very curious for me. And I'm looking more into why in the world is that even a thing?
What is that? Like, where did that idea come from? Because then wouldn't it be wet?
Yeah,
right. Because you just, I don't know.
Put them right on.
Do you need wet underwear? I don't really know about that.
Well, for the first portion of our show, we are talking to Connie about her encounters. This entire episode is Curious Encounters. And for this one, we decided to kick it off with encounters with celebrities. So we're going to pass the mic over. But first, Mandy, do you have any strange celebrity encounters?
Okay, let's see. So I haven't met anyone who I think is really big time that would be like a universal name everybody would know of.
Sure.
But I have met some bands back in the day, like rock bands and some of them heavy metal and this kind of thing, alternative stuff back in the 90s. We used to go to this club where it was very small. It was in Atlanta. So a lot of people might know it's not the same anymore. But anyway, if you were patient and persistent enough, you could meet the bands when they came out. So if you're waiting until like 1 or 2 in the morning so that you could spot them, you could go to the bus and meet them, and they would do pictures and stuff like that. So I met some of the bigger bands for that time that were in the scene. A couple of cool stories. And, these are the ones, they're not the biggest, but if you know them, and they're big to you.
Right.
So I met Glenn Danzig of Danzig, who's the frontman of Danzig and Misfits several times, and other bands like that. He's a big name in that genre. But then I met a couple of guys from Slayer at a record release outside of, I think that was in, oh gosh, where was that? Somewhere in, not Decatur. I'm trying to remember exactly. Anyway, one of the malls down there. And I don't know, do they do record signings anymore, like release and go wait in line? And
I don't think so.
I mean, they still say like my record dropped, quote unquote, but I don't know. Anyway, so Tom, who's the singer, I met him and I met the guitarist, and I was just kind of starstruck because it was a big deal to me. But it wasn't much longer after that. I was at a concert, the first time I went to see them. And so I go to approach him, the singer, and he like picks me up like I'm some little sister and kind of swings me. I mean, it was kind of silly because there's like this really serious, heavy metal band. People think of them like, oh my gosh, Slayer, that's heavy stuff back in the day. But they're not like that at all. Like they're just they're jokesters and they're fun. And so after he does that, then he asked my friend that was with me to go shoot spud guns.
What?
Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
That's like a Curious product right there. So, yeah, I mean, they were just cool. Like you were hanging out and I don't know. But yeah, we could add the spud guns to our Curious product episode. But I think they still make those, like the little retro. Anyway, another person of interest on the other end of that would be Jonathan Frid, who I actually met right here in your town, Connie.
Dalton.
Yeah. And that was at the Dalton Little Theater a long time ago in the early 90s. And I had my picture made, and unfortunately it looks like I've been photoshopped, and in the 90s, like I've just got this big head and he's kind of behind me. And one time I posted it and people were like, yeah, sure, you met him. But he was on the original Dark Shadows. That was a big thing for my mom, and we went and heard him do like dramatic interpretations he was reading and stuff. It was just very intimate. Anyway, that was cool. So a lot of people know who that is.
Wow. Okay. Well, I have a strange one. Mine's a little different. So I used to work for a theme park in Florida, and it was called Cypress Gardens. I think now it's a Legoland.
There's a lot of theme parks.
There are a lot of theme parks. So it started as a beautiful park with flower gardens, and they had a water ski show, just really cool. Well, I worked there as a Southern Belle. So, those like big, massive dresses in the Florida heat. There's that.
Fun.
Well, you can imagine the amount of like tourists and retirees that would frequent the park. And many of the men liked to flirt with the Southern Belles. I mean, that's kind of, what they did. And for the most part, this was okay. Like we would indulge with smiles and waves. You're just being kind. But sometimes that Florida heat made for some cranky belles. And I was having one of those kinds of days where I just was not feeling it. I was not in the mood for an encounter. So I'm in the break room and I'm grabbing a soda from the vending machine, and a gentleman walks up behind me and he makes a comment about how difficult it must be to move around in, and I'm going to quote it, that big old dress. And so I'm assuming it's just another Joe Schmo looking to charm a Southern Belle. So I blew this guy off pretty hard. I snubbed him. I'll say that. So he didn't say another word to me. He got his soda and he left. And I sat down at a table, and one of the workers from the front desk leaned over and he said to me, I could not believe you just snubbed Charlie Daniels.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what? You know, I didn't know who that was. I didn't listen to him at all. I was, you know, just a teen and in my own little world. And so that was definitely one of those moments where it's like, oh, if I could just turn back time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'd have been much nicer.
That's funny.
Anyway, so what about you, Connie? Any stories you want to share about encounters with celebrities?
Yeah, I want to say that I have met a lot of celebrities over the years, and the more you meet, you just find that they're truly just people like we are. But in the beginning, it's like, you know, I saw you on TV, this and that. But most of my celebrity experiences, both through work and socially, have been with rock stars from the 80s and 90s. Members from Guns N' Roses like Dizzy Reed and Steven Adler, Kip Winger, who was eating gluten-free chips on the phone when we were talking. It was like, he was the first person I ever knew because this was a while back.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, I was like, what is gluten-free? Cheers. But Skid Row, Tony Harnell, who was temporarily the frontman for Motley Crue when Vince Neil was ousted. Eddie Money was a real cool guy and had told me that whenever I'm in LA that I can stay with him and his wife, and I talked to her on the phone. When he came to Atlanta, he told me to bring my son who was into music.
That's cool.
It was really cool. There's some other cool elements to the Eddie Money thing, but just like cool things about him. But Josh Todd is from Buck Cherry. I know y'all know Buck Cherry. Yeah. And an interesting thing about him is before I met him, I talked to him on the phone, and you see Josh Todd and Buck Cherry, and it's wild, and he's got energy and jumping up and down, and his voice is like, you know, that. But on the phone and in person, he talks kind of more like a kid.
Like a soft?
Yeah, and it'll be like you're talking to a really nice, regular person, but throwing the F word everywhere because that's what they all like to do, or a lot of them like to do.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. And as both of you know, I had a brief romance with a well-known drummer from the 80s. We talked about whether we would mention that or not, and I said we won't, but I just did. I won't say who the name is. I would love to brag about it because he's really cool. I mean, not just because of the things that he's done, but he's really a cool person too. However, I learned from a mutual friend who was a musician, also out in LA, and he was like, he's married. And I was like, how did you not know? And I was like, well, I just assumed. And, you know, no, I did not. I really, really did not know. So that was short-lived. So there was that. Let's see. And those guys, like you said, are a lot of fun. And the atmosphere backstage was often just as you would imagine, yet not always. And not all of them, but many are like forever teenagers. And there's a lot of brotherhood there. Yeah. And there's a lot of practical jokes going on. And like I've said to you before, shoving their finger up their nose when the camera's in, or picking people up and hoisting them, you know, things like that.
Playful.
It's just a whole lot of fun. But about those guys, other than just, hey, that was eye-opening and it was fun for that period of my life, that's way behind me. But the ones that I like the most, I think, are the ones who took time for either my kids or said, bring Adam. Adam was interested in guitar at the time. So he had the privilege of playing that golden guitar from Jackal's, the things. Wow. He had his first tiny little sip of moonshine backstage at a Jackal event. Yeah, it was tiny, but I did too. That was my first moonshine as well. Mine was a little bit bigger, but only a little bit bigger. Let's see, and Chip Z'Nuff, Jimmy Swift, Steven Adler, a lot of them just kind of went out of their way. And even Tony Harnell at one point was, I wasn't able to go to a show he was doing in Atlanta. I think he was living in Nashville. He's the guy that was the front man for Motley when Vince was not there for a short period of time. But he was like, well, are you going to be in Dalton on this day? I'm coming through. I want to put together a package for, you know, your kids, and I'll just meet you somewhere. And I thought that was really super sweet. We didn't do it because I wasn't going to be in Dalton, but that was really nice. So that's kind of my rock and roll era.
I love to see celebrities who use their fame for good and to encourage, you know, other people. I think that's just the best way to use the talents that you have. And you're there to entertain, but if you can push somebody off in life and Yeah, point them towards a goal. I just think it's amazing.
At that time, Adam was maybe 8th grade and 9th grade, and sometimes I would take him with me. My other two kids had absolutely no interest whatsoever in going. But sometimes I took them, and sometimes it wasn't appropriate, and I didn't. But the times that I did, it was always pretty cool. And of course, Adam went in a different direction. He did not. I don't even think he plays his guitar as much anymore. But it was a fun thing during that time.
Well, that's something he'll remember forever.
Yeah, I think he will.
Awesome.
And I don't know if you have much more time, but my first celebrity interview, cut me off if you need to, was Lana Wood. My kids, I was gauged time by how old my kids are. My twins are 26. They just turned, my daughter's 25. So they were like, maybe 2-ish, 1, 2, 3, that age range. Yeah. And I was in a writing group. I was a stay-at-home mom. I was in a writer's group called Theme Stream. And I don't know, y'all probably don't remember it. I don't know about it. No. But I was talking to this lady, and she was talking about her sister. It turned out to be Lana Wood. And her sister is Natalie Wood. Yeah. And she's written one, I don't know if more than one, I think one book about her. Uh-huh. And it was so cool to learn. And I was starstruck because I love James Dean, Natalie Wood, everybody from that time period. That period, yeah. So I was able to ask her things like, I asked her if I could interview her officially because ABC was coming out at that time with a mini-series about her sister, Natalie. And I thought, this would be a cool time for me to do something like, just even write it for a local, like the local paper. But mainly I just wanted to ask her a whole bunch of questions without being totally weird. Right. Yeah. And she shared so much. She told me about, she was a Bond girl. And she told me about a hookup she had with Sean Connery and how he ghosted her afterward. Really? It was on set. Yeah, it's like a crazy story. Yeah, gosh, she'll spill it. And she told me about how even at this time before, she was hinting around at that time, but she wasn't so much publicly, openly saying RJ, Robert Woods, has some culpability in the thing that happened in Natalie's death and drowning. Yeah. And to me, that was fascinating that because the one of the reasons is the captain would call her late at night and be crying and drunk and be like, I'm going to tell you I should have, and all that. So now it's a lot more open, but she was my first real celebrity interview. Wow. And my most recent one that really just impacted me was Deborah Norville, who is from Dalton. Deborah Norville is the host of Inside Edition. She's from Dalton, and she's my broadcast hero. And she's given me some guidance as to how to, things around here, the TV station, North Georgia Television. And she's like, when you do your news, end on a positive note, because that's what people are going to remember. Oh, yeah. And because I ask her things like, why is Inside Edition still at the top of the game after all these years? And forgive me, I can't remember if it's 30 or I think about 30 years or something like that.
I would think so.
Yeah. And they just celebrated their anniversary last year. So I'm ashamed I don't remember the number, but me and numbers don't get along. Yeah. But yeah, she gave me some good advice, and she was just such a genuinely interesting, intelligent woman that she inspires me.
Wow. What a great connection for you.
I know. Oh, right? I know.
That's incredible.
I know.
Okay. Wow. All right.
That's a lot. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah. Your life is just fascinating. Just one thing after another.
I have some friends who say that, and I'm like, really? Because I think yours is. And it's like, but you know these people, and it's just like, at a certain point, it's like, they really are just people.
They're just people.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool. Like, in the beginning, like I said, I was starstruck. And somebody asked me recently, who would you interview if you could? And I was like, I don't even know if anybody would knock my socks off now. Really? Just because they're just people. And then I thought, okay, wait, Dolly Parton. Yeah. She would knock my socks off. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You need to reach out.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend, Charles C. Etheridge, who's local, but she's great, a musician. And she said, well, I want you to meet my friends, because I said that she's the one that I said that to. And she was like, you got to meet my friends who, Barry Abernathy. He's a famous banjo player, and he's good friends with Dolly. Oh. And so when she left, she reached out and she was like, Connie wants to meet you and have you on her show. And he was like, yep, let's do it. And I was like, so maybe
hearing Dolly.
Nice.
That would be so cool.
Let me meet Dolly up. I'd love that. That'd be fun.
I already told you need to cosplay Dolly, and then you can send that.
Oh, yeah. That would be fun. My waist is not what it was. Not what hers is. I'll sit there.
Make that, right?
Yeah. Just like that in. A really good corset.
Maybe we have one. are you looking at her? She just looks so young, youthful,
crazy.
And she's gorgeous.
She's gorgeous, and she's an empowered woman who empowers women.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Down to earth. Like she's, after everything, I mean, she's still just seems very down to earth. I think that would be a very cool, fun.
Oh my gosh, I don't know that that'll ever happen, because she would probably be super hard to get. She doesn't have to do interviews, but maybe if somebody knows somebody who, we'll see. We'll see where
I think that's the take. You go at it from small town point of view. So she has all these big things, but something that would reach her heart, like the smaller town.
Yeah, she got married in Ringgold.
Really?
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. They have a mural of her downtown, and it's lovely. So I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that's your angle.
Yeah,
you're going to reach somebody who's big that you think, how can I ever reach them? It's going to be something personal, right?
That's really how almost everything's fallen to me.
Yeah.
And honestly, the reason I met so many 80s and early 90s, and some country music people too, but I focus more on, because I grew up listening to Guns N' Roses and
like the 80s
and all the fun. So that was initially super fun. And at one time, I'll be honest with you, after my divorce, I was only interested if you were an 80s or 90s or rocker. And I outgrew that. But it was a fun and exciting time. And I took those assignments, or when like a promoter would call me, hey, this person's coming in and you want to, and I would do it, not for the money, because sometimes there's no money. Sometimes it's just the perks. And then it's just like, okay, I'm going to do that because they're so cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I would still like to meet Axl Rose, even though I know people who know him and they're like, no, you don't.
Yeah, just signature.
Sorry, I know Axl's not listening, but it works. Yeah, you never know. I was quoted in, oh my gosh, one of the rock magazines with something Steven Adler had told me from Guns N' Roses about, and that was Blabbermouth and some of the others way back when, and they were like, well, Steven Adler said that he needs God's help in getting the group back. And it was just some little remark he made, but then it kind of rolled, and it became like it was in a lot of different rock things, and it was an odd thing. You never know what's going to hit and what's not going to hit with people.
Yep. Awesome. Okay.
And the corset remark I made, I said, maybe you have a corset because you wear a Southern Belle.
Yes. Do you still have the Southern Belle stuff?
No, I didn't get to take any of that when I left.
Did you do an accent? Did you have the whole?
So we didn't actually talk. We didn't speak too much, unless you were kind of spoken to. But for the most part, we sat up on the benches in the gardens. And fun fact, those benches have air conditioning. So we could put our dresses over.
Nice.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And air conditioning would blow up. So we stayed up there a lot too. But
I want to see some pictures, is all I'm saying.
I do too.
Okay, so for the second portion of our show, Strange Encounters, we're talking about encounters with the paranormal. I'm super excited about this. So I do have something that I can share. Okay, well, let me say, for me, it's like, do you guys think that, I took your whole part, but do you think that paranormal, is that just ghosts?
Right. That's what I was kind of wondering. Is that like UFOs? Does that fall into there? Is that I think it's all that, right? Mm-hmm. It's just something outside of the norm.
Paranormal means not normal. So
yeah. Well, I kind of, that's where I'm at on it is, I think paranormal for me is anything outside of the norm, meaning outside of what like the majority of population or science would call normal.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of quick stories. So I don't have too much in the way of UFOs. I don't have some some of the creepy stories that you hear. But I did, like one time when I was really young, I guess middle school or something, my friend and I saw something that was in the sky that we thought was a UFO. Of course, because you're like 10 and you think you have this big imagination, right? But you want it to be something. But we're riding in the back of the truck. Y'all remember when that was a thing? You could actually ride in the back of the truck. So that sounds a little crazy now. But anyway, so we're riding down to the shore or whatever, and we see multiple lights, like a little cluster of lights. And so, of course, that's our only logical explanation. It was probably some sort of special plane that I know nothing about. But so there was another thing too that, and it's actually mentioned in my book series, but well, in part. So me and my mom were getting a lot of, I think I was in middle school now at this point. So we were getting a lot of prank calls. Remember, again, that was something back in the day. You don't get that as much on a cell phone. You're just getting annoying calls. But so we had a landline. So it's a corded phone, and it just kept ringing and somebody just listening, just that stuff to make you feel unnerved. So my mom was finally, she took it off the hook for a bit, but she finally just got very frustrated. And so she just disconnected that cord, wrapped it. It was the cradle phone, you know what I'm talking about? Just sat by the bedside. Yeah. And so she just wrapped that cord around the whole set and just put it in the drawer of like the little table there. Well, later on that day or whatever, the phone rings. And so we're both like, oh, they're calling again. She hurries in there. And then it's like, as it's happening, you're getting that recognition. You remember, oh, I actually put that phone in the drawer. It's not connected. How is it ringing? And it was the weirdest thing because we both heard it, and it was like several rings. So that was very weird. And we had a lot of phone things, for the next few years, and I think it was that same phone we just took like from house to house. So it made me feel like something was trapped in that phone. I don't know. It's crazy, but I don't like the eerie feeling of the phone. Now people would just be like, yeah, it's interference probably, but there was like a sensation, like, is somebody there? Do you have any? I don't know. Do you have anything like that, Carly?
Yeah, I have a phone story. Yeah, I can share. So I don't know if this is quote unquote paranormal. I'm not sure, but it's something that I definitely can't figure out, like, what happened. So I was babysitting for my sister. Her son was pretty young, and she had an event to attend. So I would keep him, and it was going to be past his bedtime. So I'd kind of bounced him around until he fell asleep. And then I held him on the couch. I'm just watching TV and chilling until my sister arrives to pick him up. So she loads him in the car. She drives away. I actually fell asleep on the couch holding my cell phone because I had asked her, to call me when she got home. So I'd know she made it okay. Well, I woke up the next morning and there's like instant panic because she hadn't called me. So I began to worry, and I'm thinking, gosh, did she make it okay? So I'm searching for my phone because I want to call her. I've looked under the couch. I'm digging in the cushions. I've checked underneath, the coffee table, thinking, well, maybe I knocked it there in my sleep and couldn't find it anywhere. Well, my brain starts to work, and I think, oh, well, just call the number from the house phone, because we had both back then. This one, cell phones were pretty new. That's how old I am. But so I grab the house phone and I call my cell phone, and I hear it ringing, but it's super faint, and it's like towards the back wall of the house, just very faint. After looking everywhere, I discovered that this phone was sitting on the back patio outside of a locked sliding glass door with a missed call from her from the night before. She did call me. But somehow my phone had left my hand on the couch, made its way outside of my home. In the 20 to 30 minutes it would have taken for her to drive home and call me to let me know that she made it.
Oh my God.
Like, how? I don't know.
Like, what is that?
Yeah. How did that happen?
It's wild.
Yeah. Isn't it? I mean, so I remember you telling me that story one time, and I'm like, that's really creepy. And it made me feel like a nerd for you. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe it was you. If there had been like a camera, what were you up to? Are you the creepy one? Like you did some kind of weird thing?
Yeah. So I've never been one to sleepwalk, but I thought that's gotta be the only explanation is I got up but why did I put it outside? I don't know.
Have y'all, either of you ever heard the thing that if there is any paranormal activity, it can cause sleepwalking?
Oh.
So it could have been like something before that was causing that. It's like an unrest,
I will say the home that I owned at the time that I was in, it had a very overall creepy feeling to it. And there were a few instances in that home that I can't quite explain. And the road that the house was on had a giant sinkhole that had swallowed an entire house. And it just gave the entire property kind of a spooky vibe.
That is seriously spooky.
Yes. That, to have to drive by it every day and you're just like, whoa,
Kind of like sinkholes.
Yeah.
Like,
that's terrifying.
Yep. Yeah. That's really, okay. Well, I do wish we got you on camera there because I'm curious what you were up to, but, or if something else was moving about. I mean, that's creepy to think what's happening while you are asleep. Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't sleep on the couch anymore after that.
Right? Okay, Connie, it's your turn.
Well, the paranormal, I want to start out by saying that I don't think that it's just ghosts. I think that there are demons. I think that there are things that we just don't understand. And honestly, one of the most paranormal things to me is, this is going to sound crazy, but time. How does time work? That's for a whole nother thing, but it's like, and portals and what do you call it? Dimensions and things like that. So it's this whole big grouping of things like, what is this?
Black holes.
Yeah, all of that. And well, y'all know that I've done, I started Dalton Ghost Tours 20 years ago. So this was my 20th year anniversary. And initially when I did it, there wasn't a lot of things going on paranormal. I mean, you could go to other cities and see it, maybe take a ghost tour or something like that.
Sure.
But we didn't have all of the Zach Bagans and people on TV, Ghost Adventures, talking about it. So at first I was even a little bit embarrassed because people, I mean, would say things. At one point, some of my moms, or my mom came to me and she was like, Connie, it's embarrassing when people think you're crazy. Oh, no. I was like, well, I'm not. But no, I don't think she'd ever say that now, but it was at that time. And, you know, she had her friends or whatever. And I don't know if, I don't think anybody called me crazy, but it was different. And now, well, I'm at an age now that I frankly don't care.
Right.
These are the things that have happened to me or that I've heard about. And when I'm doing a tour, I'm trying to entertain you, but I'm not making stories up because that's not part of what I do. I don't think it's necessary. There's enough out there that is not necessary.
Right.
There's so many things in Dalton. Of course, it's in my book, Haunted Dalton, Georgia, some of it. But every single year, I learn something new. And it may be a part of a story I already know, or it may be something entirely new. And when you do ghost tours, people think that you want to hear everything they've ever learned paranormal.
Oh, yeah.
It gets a little tiring, and I know that's mean to say, but it's like I've heard so many stories at this point that, you know, probably they believe it or it's true. You know, I've had experiences myself that I know for sure happened.
Right.
And I used to try to kind of like explain, well, you know, but now it's like, nope, this is what happened. Okay, believe it or don't, because that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But one thing that was kind of interesting is I love to go to Key West with my kids and with my partner, my pirate. It's another whole story, but we love to go to Key West. And once nobody wanted to go with me to see Robert the Doll. They were doing other things or tired or whatever. And I'm like, I'm going to go. I'm going to go out to that museum and check him out myself, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Right.
And I get in there and I've read about Robert the Doll, and Chucky was based on him.
Okay, I wondered that.
Yeah.
I wondered if it's the direct connection. It made me think of that. But
yeah, there's a whole thing in Key West. You can go to the artist house. It's actually a bed and breakfast where Robert was way back when.
I want to go.
Sailor. I do too. We all should make a little, we should do a podcast and a TV show from there. Yes, let's do it. And I got a place to stay there, but we'll talk about that later. So I go in there and I notice there are some people around Robert's area, and he's behind this glass encasement. And I know you're supposed to ask his permission before you take a photo with him or a photo of him, because they supposedly so many people have not, and then terrible things happen to them, and letters and items and things come back. So I was like, I don't know, I'm going to ask, because I'm not going to take a chance.
Superstition.
I kind of waited until people were not looking. I'm like, hey, Robert, can I take your picture with my hand out? Like, I'm going to take your picture now, okay? And
he was probably like, you better not be embarrassed about me.
yeah, he probably was. But I did it. Nothing bad happened from it.
Good.
I will say, too, and again, a story for another day, but I have had a voodoo curse put on me before. And from a guy in Haiti. Yeah, his mother was a high priestess, and I'm going to tell you, like I told him, my God is not going to let this happen. Well, my mother is going to kneel her soul, will be screaming, and all these things. I'm like, nope, my Jesus is not going to let that happen to me, and it didn't. I mean, nothing happened, and it was a high priestess. So maybe you know, I mean, that's it. You know, my God is going to take care of me.
Yeah.
But I was talking. I did an interview with David Sloan, who's an author. And he is one of Robert the Doll's handlers now. He does tours at this museum where he's located. And he told me on the Zoom call, he was in Key West, I was here in Dalton, and he said, we were just talking. He's like, sometimes when I'm doing a tour or something, and Robert doesn't want me to tell a story, or he doesn't want me to say something, if it's an interview, maybe the call drop, or if it's, you know, something will happen, and he was going through that, and the screen froze. And he's not talking. I'm like, David,
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
I couldn't get him back on the phone, couldn't get him back on the Zoom. And then finally we did. And he laughed. He was like, see, I told you, maybe I'm not supposed to tell what I was about to tell.
Oh my gosh.
So that was pretty wild.
Don't you want to know what he was going to say?
Right.
Yeah. You know how my brain is, though? It's like a tornado. At this point, I can barely even remember what we were talking about. Right. But I'm sure if he were to be like, hey, I was going to tell you this story, but I'd love to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we can call him up if we do go to Key West and see if we can have a private sit down with Rob with the doll.
Yeah, there's so many places we could go. I mean, there's just like, there's a lot of stuff out there because I'll get excited about each of those things. And
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I love to go and do new things. And
Absolutely. That's very interesting.
Curious things.
Yep.
Oh, and I do want to mention before we move on, you just celebrated 20 years with your ghost tour, and yours just launched this year, the same year. I think that's so cool.
Well, Connie inspired me because she told me, a couple of years, you were like, you really ought to think about this. And, in the town I'm in, it's a little small town with a ton of stories. And, Carly, you're almost a neighbor now. So,
Right.
yeah, and I think I went about it the same way as you in the fact that I want those true stories, as true as we can get those, the things that's been handed down, and nobody like jumping out, at you, kind of hokey type stuff. I want to know that weird stuff. I want to know the dark stories that happen. And it was well received. I've got a long way to go to get to where you are, but it's very cool. I loved your tour
Thank
when I've
you.
been. Yeah, it was really interesting, and it was so informative. It was not just relying on like I said, like bells and whistles kind of thing. It was true information that was spooky.
Historic stuff.
Yep.
Well, as writers, because we're all three writers, I think I can say that. For me, for sure, and probably y'all too, you love to do research and you love to find out what's at the center of this and what can I do with it. So it's really just an extension of that, the research, the stories, and then telling them.
Yep. Yeah, I want a collab come fall. Like I want to go bigger this year. So yeah.
That sounds good to me.
All right. So last but not least, the final portion of our show, we want to talk to you, Connie, about your TV station, WDNN, and then your show, which we absolutely love, called the Talk with Connie. So we had the honor of appearing on your show several times, and every time is very special, and it's always loads of fun.
Thank you.
Gosh. Yes, I love the Talk with Connie, and I think our last appearance before today was my favorite because that was when me and Carly did your game show. What was it? That so scary.
See, I forgot.
It was like a
something
tongue
sort of
twister.
scary. I don't know. I don't remember because I didn't even look down when I wrote it. When I was reading it, like, what did I?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a tongue twister, and that was so much fun. But when I watched that back, it's like I forgot that we were recording because you can see that shift in me, and like I've jumped into the game, and I'm just very casual. And that's the cool thing about doing a show with you is you always you seem to make your guests very comfortable. I know we're all friends, but I've watched with other people, and you seem to put everybody at ease. And it's just comfortable conversation, but that game show was fun. I want to do something like that again.
It was fun. I want to do maybe something kind of a little bit more regular with the little buzzers and big, y'all coming in. It was a lot of fun, and it was at Halloween, so we had that fun fest.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do more of that. I love the talk. I'm entering my 6th season here in 2024. Because before I was the president here, my dad bought the station about 6-ish years ago. And just the first thing I did here was just the show because it was fun and it was something I hadn't done before. I'd done a radio show before because I used to have a radio station.
Yeah.
So I gave a try with that. It's not really my thing so much.
Okay.
But, started the talk and it's really evolved. And I told y'all earlier today that looking back at all the ones that I upload to the Talk with Connie YouTube channel, if I'm looking at, when you have a YouTube channel, you'll go see what your most popular ones are.
Right.
And probably I haven't counted, but I would say for sure my first 7, 8, 9, the most popular ones are about true crime or something a little, the Andy Turner story we did.
Right.
We did a show here and you published his book,
Who turned up the silence.
Thank you. Who turned up the silence. I think that's made its way up to number 7 now. And before that, it's all Keeslyn Roberts, the young lady who went missing from the Flying J, which is a story that's seriously close to my heart. because I know her. I've gotten to know her parents, and it has just destroyed them. And the truth is, somebody knows what happened, and I would eat my notebook if it wasn't foul play, because there's so many things that point to it was. So she, and then Dawn Schiller. Dawn Schiller is a woman who I admire very much. She lives in LA, and there's a movie called Wonderland, the Wonderland Murders, or no, Wonderland. It's Wonderland, and it has Val Kilmer, who I think is an extraordinary actor. She went into
that movie.
Yeah, after that movie, I think she was his personal assistant for a while. But he's a fascinating guy too, I think. Never met him, but he sounds like he is.
I would think so.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, he was so good looking back in the day. I don't know if you remember, but
I'm real sensitive about him now, and that makes me sad. Like at the end of it, by the end of it, I'm just really feel sad and lonely. If you've not seen it,
Wonderland, you really must watch it. Okay, it's about the Wonderland murders. It's heavy. Okay, this is who Dawn is. Dawn's character was played by Kate. She's famous. Boswell.
Yeah, Boswell.
Yeah,
Center.
Boswell.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Val Kilmer played John Holmes. How do we always say into these areas?
I don't know.
John Holmes was like a porn star. Never saw any of his movies, but I'm out. And
he's major names. So
yeah.
I think everybody knows who that is.
In his history, yeah. And
it's in the public domain now.
Right. I can say that. So he, when she was a young girl, I can't remember now, but she might have been 14, 13, something like that. She had some problems in her family life. The dad took the girl, her and her sister, I believe it was, cross country. They ended up meeting with somebody who was like, hey, let's stay at, I know a place that y'all can stay. It was these, I guess, apartments or hotels that was managed by John Holmes, the porn guy. And he groomed her from an early age.
She was really young.
She was very young and had problems, and he abused her, and he human trafficked her.
Yeah, it's a very sad story.
It's in the it's very watered down.
I'm sure it is. It's Hollywood at the time kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and she's even told me, that scene where they're in the bathtub and it seems like he's gentle and he's being good to her and he regrets what he did. She was like, it wasn't like that. It was not that gentle and sweet and all that. And she said that scene really bothered her. But here's what I love about Dawn. All the terrible things that happened to her and those murders, the Wonderland murder.
Yeah, it's like two things going on.
Huge thing. Huge, the Wonderland in LA back in that time. But she went away. She went out of the country. I think she maybe lived at I don't know, she practiced some, knew some monks and some things like that, and ended up coming back here. And now she champions women who are or men even, I guess. Mostly it's women, but who are trafficked. And she works for the government. She works with all kinds of organizations. She's got herself educated. She's written
amazing.
And it's like, I love Dawn Schiller.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Do you know the name of her book?
You know what? Somebody needs to look it up that's listening, because I haven't got a copy. I think it's called Surviving John Holmes. Wonderland, maybe. Surviving John Holmes.
There are so many aspects to that story. I remember at the time, I was like, it's not just about that industry. And then there was the whole murder thing and stuff. And
it's barely about that industry. It's about the murders mostly.
Yeah, it's about the murders. But I felt so sorry for her in that. And of course, I didn't know her. I haven't met her. But that character, I just felt like
he wasn't good. John Holmes was not a good man. He not only abused her and abused other people, I can't remember if he killed or tortured or what, her little dog to keep, maybe just to keep her under control a little bit.
Dark stuff. It's just yuck. Yeah. It's yuck.
And that's why I love that story about Dawn, because she came out the other side. Not that she didn't have trials and things. We became friends. And, occasionally we still talk, a little bit here and there, but it's like, she's somebody that if I were, going out to LA or sometimes she lives maybe in another area too, but I totally love to go visit her, see how she's doing and what she's up to, because she's always up to something good.
That's amazing. I love those kind of stories, because it's that silver lining. It's that, not everybody turns out that way. They get pulled in, and that's the path for them for the rest of their life. And so I didn't realize that all that had happened for her to the good.
Maybe she could be a guest for you guys someday.
I
bet she would.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make that connection. You have a connection with everybody. You really do.
It was a rocker who told me once, I wish I could remember the exact quote, but it was something like, isn't it fun when creative people can come up with some idea as a way to meet somebody else? Yeah, and it's true. I mean, because I'll gravitate toward the stories I want to report, so I might, reach out if I don't know them, or if I have a connection, cool. But if I don't, I'll still reach out like, I'd love to do a story with you, just because I'm so curious and I want to know about their life. What Dolly Parton,
right? Yeah,
they're
Yeah, I'm thinking you're going to get on that one, right?
I'm going to get on it. Let's all pray about it.
Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. Connie, your stories did not disappoint. I knew they would not, but I know our listeners are going to love hearing all of these in the future, and just different types of stories. You've got something to cover, a lot of different areas. It's very cool, and I'm excited that you plan to be a recurring guest, right?
Absolutely. So
we're counting on you. Yeah. I know we've already talked a bit about your other stories, and we can sort of dig into each of these individually, but it was just great intro into the kinds of curious stories you have to share with us. So we'll take one apart maybe next time and dissect a little bit individually, and this has been a nice spread. So I say until next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I always love hanging out with you guys.
Well, we love it too.
Yeah. Well, listen, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, where we post exclusive content, contests, and so much more. And of course, you can keep up with our episodes through Podbean or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And as always, if you have a story that sparks curiosity, or you have something that you want us to talk about, just shoot us an email to ourcuriouspodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time.